Justin quit his job and launched a company right before a global pandemic. Now, Justin Dixon helps some of the fastest growing startups and PE backed companies in America find the talent that drives real results. In this episode, we dig deep into the biggest hiring mistakes founders make, how to recruit like a top tier brand, even if you're still starting out, and why AI is changing recruitment forever. Whether you're scaling your team or making your first hire, this is the conversation you didn't know you needed. Let's get into it. Hey, Justin, how are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm really good. Thank you so much for joining me today. Let's go straight into it. Startups often struggle to compete with big brands for top talent. What are some of the underrated strategies you've seen that early stage companies use to attract the top talent?
I think as an early stage company, you need to think as big as possible from a branding perspective. Like the way I think about kind of when I work with my startups, it's a lot of times you can't always compete on salary when you're trying to attract top talent. You can't compete on some of the perks and benefits that a big company can offer. And so there's other things that people that want to join a startup are really interested in, and that is the mission of the company. So, what are you actually doing, and why are you doing it? And then also thinking about kind of other things that big companies can't offer, and that's actual equity, stock options in the business, so that they also can participate in the upside of the company, even if their compensation, their salary, and maybe bonuses are maybe lower than what they could make at a big Fortune 500 company.
And how important are missions and values and beliefs for a company?
I think they're really important as long as it's not just words on a wall. We all have worked in companies where we've got our mission statement, we've got our core values, and they're really just a sign on the wall or in the break room or something like that. A lot of the startups that I work with, the founder started the business for a specific reason. Maybe it's a pain point that they saw in their lives or they've seen in friends' lives. But they eat, sleep, drink, and breathe that mission. And so if even if it's not on the wall, they have a mission and why they're in business and why they are serving the clients that they are serving. And that really comes through when you're talking to these founders. You can tell the ones that are literally just putting the mission statement out there because they think they should, and ones that are really talking about mission and actually living it on a daily basis.
Yeah, I would 100% agree. I've worked in a company that had all of the mission statements on the wall, and it just wasn't embedded in the culture. It
Yeah.
was just literally a tick box exercise. This is what they read in an article, heard on a podcast, and therefore they emblazoned it on the wall, and it wasn't embedded. So I would 100% agree with that. Next, you've been very vocal about AI in recruiting. What do you see that actually adds value and what is actually hype?
That's a good question. I think from a pure recruitment standpoint, the AI solutions that are out there right now, from an AI sourcing perspective, meaning helping a recruiter identify candidates that they couldn't find on their own, isn't there yet, in my opinion. And I have not tested every AI recruitment sourcing platform out there. LinkedIn Recruiter is still my go-to source to find candidates. Um, I think some of the other tools, think of AI interviews. So, this could be AI, we could be AI generated right now, having a chat with one another, and people may not know. I think some of the AI interviewing tools open companies up to a lot of risk because while you can control the questions that an AI interviewer is asking, you can't control what a human responds with. So if a candidate responds to a question asked and provides information that could be deemed as discriminatory, and that AI bot is capturing word for word what that person's saying, and that transcript is then moved over into an applicant tracking system, which is a system of record, and then that candidate doesn't get the job and they sue because they think they were discriminated against. That could open that company up to a lot of legal impact. And so I think some of those things from the people I've talked to in that world are starting to try and solve some of those problems to mitigate the risk. But I think, just like a lot of AI, we're at the very tip of the spear, and there's a lot of changes and updates and progress that's going to happen, over the next 6 to 12 months that hopefully will really improve and make people's lives, even easier and be able to do a lot more with less than they do right now.
So I met someone just before the holiday season, just before Christmas, and he had built a AI tool that would do the first interview, the sort of intro interview, to be able to thin out the thousands of inquiries for jobs in some cases, and thin it out to be able to get the right candidates to actually meet the humans and the directors and of the business. And I was really excited. I didn't go into a huge, it was a short conversation. It was only a 30-minute conversation. But I got quite excited by that idea of being able to glean out the not the wrong candidates and the obviously wrong candidates that are applying for it. And I was talking to him, and he said, look, we're nearly there where we can be accurate and be able to have conditions that the company wants and be able to get that first interview through. And I thought it's a great idea for a business. Now, obviously, I didn't test it out. Do you think it's just that AI is not at the point where it can do it with any sort of so I always say, like, AI is about 80% right, and it sort of makes up sometimes 20%. Do you think to be able to accurately do like a first interview, you would need it much more improved, closer to 90, closer to 95, 96, 97% correct, to be able to do that?
I think there's different use cases where 80%, the current status, is good enough. And I think there's other use cases where I do a lot of exec hiring. So C-suite for
Right.
these startups. And one, I don't use AI interviewing for any of my interviews at this point, mainly because people that I talk to at the C-suite, they don't necessarily want to talk to AI. They want to talk to a person that knows
Mm.
more about the job, et cetera, et cetera. So I think, that aside, there are a ton of use cases where I see that exact solution that you just described as a massive value add. Think of any high volume, high turnover environment, call centers, warehouses,
Yeah.
et cetera, where you're getting hundreds and hundreds of applicants for one job opening, or maybe you've got to fill a class. Like I worked at Comcast, and some of the recruiters, they had to fill, they'd have 10 people start every Monday because they knew there was going to be turnover, and they were just trying to add staff. So in those circumstances where you are interviewing people more on, hey, do you fit the salary requirements? Do you fit the location? Can you commute to the job? Do you have 2 years experience in XYZ skill set? And you're just trying to sift through the noise of all of the other applicants. I 100% agree that that the AI that is out there right now can be a value add to a recruiter. But also on the candidate side, a lot of the problems and a lot of the kind of challenges that people have with applicant tracking systems is they apply to a job, they never hear any feedback one way or the other until the position is closed, and then they get an automatic rejection letter, where AI theoretically will now give them at least a shot to put their best foot forward in a AI interview, so that they are at least kind of considered for the role, or they feel like they are being considered for the role, as opposed to just applying and being thrown into the black hole of an applicant tracking system. So for my application, I don't think the AI interviewing is there yet that I feel comfortable that I'm going to be using it in the near term. I think for what maybe your friend has, they should go after, and I talked to somebody about this a while ago who has an AI interviewing platform, going after high volume, high turnover environments.
Yeah.
Where the recruiters are just inundated with applicants, and they literally can't get through all the applicants to give every resume a look. That is an area where it could unlock time savings for the recruiter, but also unlock a little bit around the candidate experience for any candidates that are applying to those jobs.
Yeah, I agree. Executives and sort of they I don't think they would respond very well to having an AI sort of interview. So I think you're right in that sense. I think for when there is a job at sort of entry level or something where you've got a lot of candidates, I think it can be a useful tool. All right, moving on. Let's rewind to early 2020. What pushed you to leave a stable role and launch your own company just exactly at the same time that the world was shutting down?
Yeah, so I'll take a slight step back because I never really grew up in an entrepreneurial environment. I grew up in a very, very small town in central Pennsylvania on a small farm. We weren't active farmers, but we did have, animals. We had chickens and pigs and things like that. And I knew as an early kid I wanted to get out of that kind of small town feel. I wanted to be in business. I had no idea what that actually meant or what I wanted to do. But I knew I wanted to kind of live in a bigger area. And so I moved to Philadelphia shortly after college. And I was doing the 9 to 5. My financial education at that point in my life was get a good job, invest in your 401k, and then hope you've got enough money in the bank and in your retirement savings when you want to retire at 65 or whatever age that is. And so I was marching down that path. I'd gotten married. My wife and I were marching down that path. And then in like 2017, 2018, I read a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And that book kind of flipped a light bulb on in my brain. And for those of you who have read it or haven't read it, really the summary is, if you're a W-2 employee, you are trading your time for money and you are helping somebody else build a business and potentially get rich. And so there's a different way to do that. There's a different way to kind of take your time and invest it into a business of your own, invest your money into other things other than just the stock market. Real estate is one of the main things that they talk about, but thinking about generating passive income. And so I was a little nervous because my wife and I, again, we grew up in a similar style of just work for the man and 9 to 5. And so I gave her the book. I asked her to read it. She read it and had the same response that I did of like, what the heck are we doing? We should be investing our money differently, investing our time differently. And so we spent the next, call it year and a half, getting ourselves mentally, physically, and financially prepared because I was going to quit my job and start a recruiting business. I've been in recruiting my entire career since 2006. So what better thing to do than just start a recruiting business because that's what I know how to do, right?
Yep.
So in 2019, early 2019, we bought a duplex in Western Pennsylvania because we were trying to build that passive income because I was going to quit a job. I was making a good amount of money as head of recruitment for a wealth management firm in Philadelphia. And so my salary was going to go from nice 6 figures to zero, overnight. And so we wanted to build some financial stability there. We owned a condo in Philadelphia. We moved to the suburbs, rented a small apartment, rented the condo out. So this is another passive income stream that we were getting. And then we intentionally downgraded our financial lifestyle to the point that my wife's salary, because she was going to stay doing the 9 to 5, could cover all of our expenses. So even if I made $0 in the year that I was starting my business, we would not have to dip into savings and we could still live a relatively comfortable, normal life. And this was also at the time when all of our friends were doing the exact opposite. They were buying houses, bigger houses. They were, having kids, and they were expanding their lifestyles, but we were intentionally contracting it a little bit. And then I had the bright idea to my quit date was going to be kind of the first week of January of 2020, not knowing that in a few months the world was going to shut down for a global pandemic. So that was a direct kick in the mouth when you're excited about launching your first company. You're excited to be an entrepreneur, and then especially in recruiting, nobody was hiring in 2020 for the most part. And so that was a very challenging first year in business, to say the least.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I left my corporate job during the pandemic as well.
Mm, yeah.
And yeah, I get it. It was I said to I said to my wife, I was like, this is either going to be a genius move or it's going to be a terrible move, and I'll be looking to get the job back in a year's time. And that's now what, 5, 6 years down the
Yeah.
line. But sometimes you have to take risks. As an entrepreneur, I was also influenced by Rich Dad Poor Dad. I did a similar
Mm,
route that you've done of buying properties, getting passive income. Well, I'd say passive income, as passive as it can be when it comes to
right.
property. But and Yeah, it definitely had a big impact on me, and it changed my life. That book, that and Tim Ferriss's 5 Hour Work Week,
Oh yeah.
that was another big impact for me as well. Being able to outsource a lot of it, and especially now with AI being able to take on some of the
Yeah.
roles as well, it's almost brought in a new lease of life. That book as well.
Yeah.
Um, so how do you how do you move to tie your business goals into your personal vision as a person for yourself, as a founder, as a leader? How do you accompany your business goals with your vision?
I think um, so. Up until earlier this year, late last year, my company was just me. I had a virtual assistant in the Philippines that was helping me a lot. So being a solo-ishpreneur, up until last year, I hired somebody who's been with me 5 months now, who's really leading the business development front. Um, it's pretty easy to be, kind of tie your personal goals to your financial goals to your business goals because they are one and the same, right? My wife, she was the steady income with the W-2. Um, and I was what we classified as I was the risk. I was the one that was out there, investing my time and some of our money into building my business because, in recruiting, you can make a lot of money more so than what you would do in a corporate setting, assuming that the economy is good and you're good at what you do. And so, luckily, my wife and I have been in lockstep from a financial standpoint pretty much since we met. We both were not very big spenders. We like having cash. We like having money in the bank. We like having investments. And we live a great life, but we're not driving Bentleys and brand new cars and all that other fun stuff. And so every year we sit down, and we just did this because we're recording this in very early January of 26. New Year's Eve, we sit down and we share our personal goals for the year, and then we share kind of our financial goals, and then what are our kind of couple goals. And obviously now that Hire Tomorrow is, we've got two kind of full-time people in the business. We've got a consultant that works with us, and my wife is still a W-2. We really align on what are the business goals because those directly impact our personal goals and our investing goals and all that fun stuff. So yeah, we spend a few hours the New Year's Eve really reflecting on the current year that's going to be going by the wayside at midnight, and we talk about what our goals and aspirations are for the coming year.
That's amazing. That's great. Um, Are you tired of chasing clients and feeling like the only way to grow is to work harder and harder? Imagine instead having a steady stream of qualified clients coming to you because they know exactly who you are and why they need your help. That's what Christine Campbell Rapin is all about. Christine is the founder of Clear Acceleration Inc. and the creator of Turn On Your Waterfall movement. She works with entrepreneurs and business owners to cut through the noise, sharpen their messaging, and build simple systems that consistently attract clients without burnout and without gimmicks. If you want to discover how to stop chasing and start attracting, Christine has built resources and training designed exactly for you. Her work is trusted by business owners who are serious about creating consistent growth without the overwhelm. So here's what to do next. Go to the description below and click on the link and sign up. Take that first step today and start building consistent growth in your business with Christine Campbell. Moving on to Hire Tomorrow. So, what does hire with confidence mean as a sort of philosophy for you and your clients?
Yeah, I think one of the things that growing up in the staffing world, working for a big agency, staffing firms get a very negative reputation, and rightfully so. There's a lot of staffing firms out there. Not all of them are, putting the client's needs above the financial aspirations of the company. And so I started my business for a number of reasons, but one of the things I want to do is really help small businesses and mid-sized businesses make sure that they are uncovering the right talent for their specific job in their specific situation. And so Hire with Confidence kind of came out because I want companies to trust and have confidence that by working with Hire Tomorrow, working with me, that they know that The people that I'm presenting to them not only fit their job, fit their culture, but I'm not looking at the candidates as dollars, because once I place somebody, I typically get paid, after they start. I want to build a long-term relationship with my clients, because if I place somebody in there just to get paid and that person doesn't work out, well, then I'm never going to work with that company again, because they're not going to have confidence that I'm doing the right things for that company, and B, that I'm going to find a better candidate the next time. So I really want my clients to have confidence that working with us, they know that we are out there working on their behalf, because we are essentially salespeople for them, selling their business, selling the opportunity, selling the vision and the dream that they have for their company, and hoping to attract the right people for them, and helping that company grow. Because if we hire one great person for a 50-person company, that one person is going to have a lot more impact than hiring a person for a 10,000 person company, right? So there's a lot more risk that goes into hiring people for startups, because a great hire can have a really positive impact, but a bad hire can have a really negative impact as well.
So, what's the process that you go through when you're working with a new client? Do you sit down with the person who's tasked with responsible for hiring? Are you talking to them about their culture and their vision and their mission? Are you talking to them about, obviously, the things like how much they want to pay and if there's any equity or things like that are important, but how deeply do you go into sort of demographics or psychographics of the person that you're wanting to hire?
I go as deep as they will allow me to, because some clients, they want to fill a position, they want to fill it as fast as possible. So I get as much information as I feel is necessary, that I can go out and confidently represent that client. I don't take on every search that is presented to me, because I do want to get to know my clients as much as I possibly can before, during, and after the search. Because that helps me do my job better and faster for them. So it's that whole adage of, like, if you spend some time and invest time up front in giving me as much information as I need, that will help me speed up my process along the way. So yes, I like to sit down with the hiring manager. I try to sit down with as many people that are going to be part of that hiring process as possible, because I want to know who the people that are also interviewing this person. They may not have the ultimate final decision on who gets the job, but their input is going to be weighed by that hiring manager, who's going to have that thumbs up, thumbs down responsibility, because each person is going to be, has their own, kind of method and process and structure. And so I try to give them a little bit of structure also, because a lot of startups, they don't have an interview process. They don't know what questions they can and can't ask. As simple as that is. So I try to get as deep as I possibly can in the first meeting or two. And then as I'm going and talking to candidates, those subsequent meetings with the hiring manager, I'm getting even more information, so that we can make sure that we are, hitting the bullseye as much as we possibly can when it comes to the right candidates. So I try to get as deep as I can. Some clients want to use like personality assessments and culture assessments and things like that. Others don't. I kind of leave it up to the client to see what they want. Some people love assessments, some people don't. But yeah, my whole process, I have kind of a formula, if you will, but it can be customized, because some companies really want to get into the weeds of, here's why company or people want to come to our company. And here's why people may not want to come here, because we work long hours, or there's certain things that attract people to companies, and there's certain things that turn people off, to different opportunities. And I want to know both sides of that, because the last thing I want to do is overpromise or underpromise to a candidate about a position or opportunity, and they get in there and 6 months later they're like, this is not what you told me. And then they quit, and then, I either need to backfill that role, or, that client's mad, and then they go work with somebody else.
Yeah, yeah. So you've worked across a lot of different industries. How do you tailor the specific recruitment strategies for various different industries that you work with?
Yeah, I think my process doesn't change a ton across industries. So, I've worked with biotech companies. I've worked with, early stage SaaS startups. At the end of the day, they need to fill an open job. And so a lot of times I'm going to a lot of the similar sources. I'm tapping into my own personal network to find the right people. It really doesn't differ greatly around the type of role or the type of client. A lot of it comes down to what their internal infrastructure is. So some companies, I work primarily with the hiring manager because they don't have an HR person, or that HR person is really a generalist. So I'm leading all of the process, and I bring in my virtual assistant to help with a lot of the scheduling and processing of candidates through the interview process. Other companies are larger and they have their own internal teams, their own internal structure, and so I plug myself into those structures to make that company's life easier. So the good thing about being a small recruitment firm is I have the ability to be nimble and adjust and adapt to what my clients need. But also I provide to them, hey, here's what best practices are, or things that have been successful in other similar industries or similar companies, because a lot of times they don't have a lot of structure, and so having some input, and that's also what my job is to provide them context. And hey, I help this other company that's very similar. Here's how we were able to find the right person, and here's some of the interview processes that we use to make sure that you're identifying the right talent. So again, it's a little bit of a out of the box or kind of off the shelf kind of structure, but can be malleable to what my clients need.
And how are you actually marketing to your? Because I learned this a long time ago when I was in when I was in corporate and I was looking for jobs and things, that recruiters, their clients are the companies that are hiring. The candidates are, let's be honest, less
Assets.
important than the company, aren't they? That like you've got
I
an
would say,
inundation of, and I take it if you're hiring executives, it's a slightly different matter, but your main service is to the company that's hiring, isn't it?
I am paid by the company, yes. However, it's I can't fill a position without good candidates,
Yeah.
and I can't get good candidates if I'm not if I have a bad reputation in the market. And so going back to kind of how do I market, a lot of my business is generated from referral. Like I do, I post on LinkedIn. Obviously I've got a podcast now, and a lot of my guests on the podcast are current potential clients. So I interview a lot of startup founders, private equity and venture capital investors, and then CEOs of mid-market companies. So I have a little ecosystem from the podcast. However, a lot of my business is generated from referral, and that's great. As a solopreneur, I hired a full-time employee to focus on building a local network here in Austin within the kind of tech industry, and so she's been really instrumental in helping to exponentially grow the business throughout the last handful of months, and will do for this year and beyond. So I'm not out there spending money on paid ads and things like that to generate clients, because a lot of my clients are my best referral source. And obviously when I place a candidate in a company, if I do well by that candidate, and let's say they move to another company, I'll follow up with them and say, hey, I helped you get the job at ABC company, and you moved over to XYZ. How can I help over there? And that's how, a lot of times that's how I get business as well, is just keeping in touch with people that I place. And hopefully that I was, Hire Tomorrow was a good steward to them, and they were, they're interested in helping me, get into the company that they went into.
So you have a pretty decent like Rolodex of people for candidates for positions at this stage.
Yeah, I mean, I would say every company hires at different timelines, right? So not every company that I know of in my quote unquote Rolodex, not to date us, but yeah, in my Rolodex, or in my CRM maybe,
Yeah. Sorry, I was being old school saying
no.
Rolodex.
I still use it. I still use it. So yeah. So I have a ton of people that I've placed. I've been doing this for almost 20 years. I probably placed thousands of people in my day so far. So yeah, I keep in touch with them as much as I possibly can. And I'm there when they need me. And the challenge in the recruiting business, if anybody's listening or watching this that is in the recruiting world, a lot of times it's all about timing, because if I could call you today and say, hey, I've got a recruiting firm and here's how I can help. And and they're like, oh, sorry, we don't have any open positions. And then tomorrow somebody quits. And then tomorrow you get a call from another recruiting firm and they're like, hey, I can help you with hiring. And you're like, oh crap, I have a hiring need now. I'll use you because you are top of mind because you're on the phone. So that's part of the challenge of kind of net new business. It's much easier when you have a relationship and you have a good brand and you have a good reputation in order to kind of be top of mind. The best thing that you can do is have an inbound lead come in and say, hey, Justin, we need your help with this position. And you didn't know that job was open. And that's the best thing that happens. Does it happen often? No, but when it does, it's great.
Um, so has your strategies, let's just delve a little bit into the marketing again. So you've hired a new person that's
Yep.
made focus is on BD, yeah?
Yep.
So how has your marketing processes for that person, that role that she's been brought in?
Yep.
Yeah, that she's been brought in. How has that role evolved over the last 5 months for her to be able to build your client base?
So a lot of it is, so one thing I was not looking for a early career, just 100 call a day salesperson. That's not what recruiting is. That's what I did when I was early in my career. I was placing different positions back then. It was a lot of high volume stuff. And so what we do is a lot more custom, a little bit more executive search level. And so the first few months for her was really just learning and kind of understanding the business and how we do it. Because she didn't have a ton of recruitment experience. She's been in sales. She's been, in a relationship manager for a long time. And that's the type of personality that does really well in the recruiting world, is somebody that is much more of a relationship builder versus a transactional salesperson. You can be successful as a transactional salesperson in this industry. But in order to get those long-term relationships, get those inbound kind of recs coming in, it's really about building a lasting relationship. And so that was her background. She's here, obviously local here in Austin. And so I don't love going to networking events. I don't love going to happy hours and things like that, and walking up to people and just introducing myself. I'm a bit more of an introvert, and she is the exact opposite, which is why I hired her, because so a lot of what she is doing is meeting people in person. It's kind of crazy to think of, in the age of Zooms and virtual offices and things like that, where people are actually now starting to want to get back and meet people and see people in person and shake hands. And I think AI is contributing to that, where there's a lot of mistrust and uncertainty of what's real, what's not real online. And so a lot of her business development is going to events, going to happy hours, hosting things. We're going to be hosting a lot of events this year locally here in Austin, because a lot of people want to get out and meet and mingle and be in the room with CEOs, be in the room with private equity people. And so the more that we can create a local brand, a local network of Austin tech talent, the more people will find jobs, whether we get paid for those or not. If they meet somebody at a happy hour, that's awesome. But also they'll get to know us a little bit more, other than an email that they get from us or a social media post or whatever. They'll actually get to shake our hand, meet in person and be able to talk more openly about kind of what they're trying to do, which has been a lot of fun. And she's again, she loves that stuff. I don't love it, so she's out there right now at a coffee. She's got another event later today. And so, so far she's been great at kind of helping to continue to fortify the brand locally and expand it as well.
So do you just look after the Austin area, or do you go, how wide do you go geographically?
Oh no, I mean I've hired people in London, I've hired people in Spain, but most of our clients are based here in the U.S. Location is not really as important as it used to be, because a lot of even if the company is based here in Austin, I'm hiring people all over the country. I've got clients from, I think I've hired people in almost every state except for maybe Montana at this point. But I've hired people all across the country. My clients are I've got Canadian clients at the moment right now. So location is not overly important. I'm trying to build a little bit of a local Austin presence, because there's a lot of startup talent here. There's a lot of SaaS talent here, which is probably 80% of our revenue comes from B2B SaaS companies. And so, having a local presence, but it being able to satisfy a larger market is really helpful. Also, a lot of my clients that aren't based here in Austin see Austin as a great talent hub, especially for SaaS, because we have such a high concentration of B2B SaaS companies here. There's a lot of good talent here locally in Austin, and it's less expensive than if you're trying to hire somebody in California or New York or whatever. So you can get a lot of bang for your buck here in Austin from a talent perspective.
How do you differentiate yourself in the market? There are a lot of recruitment consultants, a lot of recruiters. What's your differentiation?
It's not easy to differentiate because we all have access, especially in the age of LinkedIn and now with AI, you have a lot of access to the same talent pools that you didn't, 10, 15, 20 years ago, where you could have a proprietary database of talent. So it's not as easy. I think the biggest differentiator that I talk to my clients about is me, unfortunately or fortunately, because I've been doing this. This is all I've ever done in my career. I've been doing it for almost 20 years. And so I am competing with people that are 2-3 years out of high school, or sorry, out of college, or 2-3 years of experience. And no offense to them, but they probably don't have the depth of experience or the breadth of experience as I do. And so I have to compete with them. And so a lot of clients like that I have a broad brush of experience. I'm not a specialist in the sense that I only fill accounting positions. I only fill tech positions. I tell my clients, especially the small businesses, I can be your one throat to choke when it comes to recruiting, whether you need to hire a CFO, a CEO, or a salesperson or accountant, and companies that are startups that need to hire 1, 2, 3 of different types of positions like that, they can go to Hire Tomorrow, go to Justin and say, hey, we need you to help hire a product person. Cool. We hired that product person. Okay, now we need an accountant. Cool, I'll hire an accountant. We need a head of sales. Okay, cool. And so that helps to also build a relationship and understand the culture of that business, because the longer you work with a company, they can just email me and say, hey, we need a salesperson. And if I've already filled that position, I know exactly what they need, right? I confirm a few things to make sure nothing has changed, but then I can just hit the ground running, and I may already have candidates in my Rolodex to actually place with them. So it's not easy to differentiate other than, I see a lot of companies differentiating on AI. I don't think that's a differentiator. Like they use AI. Everybody uses AI at this point in some form or fashion to make their jobs, their office administration processes easier, faster. So yeah, it's not easy, but I talk a lot about my experience, the different things that I've done. I've hired everything from a CEO to a forklift driver and kind of everything in between. So you tell me what you need, I go find it.
How are you going to continue to grow your business as you clearly, and this is not a criticism, but you clearly are a bottleneck in your
Oh yeah, no,
business?
trust me, I get it. The good thing is there are a lot of me's out there, people that have been career recruitment professionals, whether they've been an agency or been in corporate the rest of their lives. And I already have a few people that I use on a time to time basis whenever I have a client that either has more positions that I feel comfortable that I can fill at the same time. So I'll bring in consultants. And so I've already had conversations with people about just bringing them into my business, whether it's they have a business and I have a business and then we merge. I don't want to necessarily go down the large staffing firm route of hiring people right out of college and plugging them in. I was that when I got my start, and I think that was a great start for me in the recruiting world. But in order to maintain the experienced recruitment persona that Hire Tomorrow has, I need to find and hire people that are experienced recruiters that are maybe not as experienced as me, but have experience. And so I already have plans in place, assuming that Aaron, who's my salesperson, does well. That we'll be adding. The next hire will be a recruiter, because I can't fill every position, and obviously that is a bottleneck. But I already have plans in place to either bring in, hire a consultant that I've worked with, or hiring more experienced people and bringing them in to make sure that we keep that experienced recruitment professional persona.
What piece of advice would you give a founder preparing to make their first key hire?
Think about it a lot, because a lot of times I have people that come to me in this situation, and I'll share an example, and I won't give the company name away, but I had met the kind of founders they were raising an angel round, and I saw them pitch at an angel investing group that I'm a part of here in Austin, and they were about to hire their first non kind of referral or network hire, meaning somebody that they didn't know. And so I got to know them. I said, hey, I have a recruiting firm, I can help you. And we sat down, and the first conversation, like, hey, we need a head of sales. I was like, okay, cool. Like, why? Like, what is the reason that we're hiring this position? And we went through a number of questions. And then I said, well, what you're asking for is really 3 positions in one, because they wanted somebody that could sell. They wanted somebody that could, manage customers, and also they needed somebody that understood finance. And I'm like, well, that's not exactly one person. That's probably 2 or 3 different positions. So a lot of times when you're hiring your first person, you wait long enough or whatever, and you're like, I need to fill these 3 gaps, but I only have budget for 1 position. So really making sure that you're thinking about what is the key role and what are the key skill sets they're going to be hiring, and does that person exist? And maybe they do, but does that person exist within my budget? And that may be a completely different answer. So making sure you're very clear on what you're looking for, and also making sure that if you're working with a recruiter, that they are there as your partner to give you the good news, the bad news, and everything in between, to say, hey, we can fill this, but you're low on budget, or you're asking for 3 positions in one. So find that recruitment partner, especially if you're using an external recruitment partner, as early as possible, and get them involved in your thought process, because they will be able to bring you data and insights that you probably don't have access to, through LinkedIn and some other tools, and just experience that we have. So it's really sitting down and making sure you understand exactly what you're looking for, why you're looking to hire that person. Are you within the market pay band that you should be paying to compete for the right talent? And then having a really clear kind of timeline on when do you want to hire this person, and what are they going to do? What does 30, 60, 90 days kind of look like? So if you're a founder and really thinking about hiring your first external hire, that's great, exciting, congratulations. But also there's a little work you should do, and try to bring in a recruitment partner as early as you can to be that true partner through that process.
And do you feel fractional roles, part-time roles, consultant roles for people as well, if they don't have the budget for a full-time, or necessarily they don't have the work to take someone full-time? Is that something that you help people with?
Absolutely. Yeah. And a lot of times in that same situation, that's what they did. Initially, they brought in they had somebody in their Rolodex that they knew. And I said, hey, you should probably bring in like an intern person to help set some things up, because you can't afford the C-suite. You don't need a C-suite person full time. So bring in a C-suite fractionally, a couple hours a month, whatever, to help build the engine, and then hire somebody that's a little bit more junior, that's in your pay band, and let that interim person train that person, so that then they can take it over and run the engine. And maybe you don't need that interim person anymore, or you only need them on a hey, once a quarter, come in and just make sure we're doing the right thing. So yeah, a lot of times I have to give them that feedback of like, hey, in order to get what you want, you're gonna need to pay a lot more. And also, do you have enough time or enough work for them to do in order to keep them, busy? So yeah, we help them find interim people, fractional people. A lot of times, my clients will be like, especially for financial roles, if they're like, hey, we need a CFO, but because our CFO just left, okay, cool, I'll bring in an interim person for the short term that can help keep the train on the tracks. And then that will also help us as we're looking for the full-time replacement. And oh, by the way, that interim person can help train and onboard the new CFO, and make that handoff really, really smooth. So yeah, there's a lot of kind of optionality that we have, that we give to our clients, that we're not a one-trick pony. We don't just do exec search. We do a lot of different things. And it's been a lot of fun to be able to help clients that maybe don't have the budget for a full-time, executive search type model. And so we've got some low-cost options that we launched last year. One of them we call recruiting as a service. And effectively it is because AI is causing small businesses in particular to be inundated with applicants to every job that they get. They don't have the infrastructure set up to be able to combat that. So if you're getting 500 applicants to, one job, and you've got 5 jobs open, the hiring managers for those jobs don't have the time necessary to review all those applicants. And if you have an HR person, they definitely don't have the time to review, 1,500 applicants for those jobs. And so we provide that kind of outsourced option to them so they can post the job. We take care of all the kind of blocking and tackling of reviewing all the applicants and kind of just serving them up the ones that, fit the qualifications, fit their budget, fit the location, et cetera. And then we help them ferry them through the process, which has been great for these small businesses that they don't have the budget for the exec search kind of model, but they do need some support.
And what about onboarding? Do you help people with onboarding? Because it's one of the things that I think is the most important thing, which is in the recruitment process, which is the most undervalued, or that some people don't see the value in having a strong onboarding process.
I don't get a lot involved. I stay engaged with my candidate pretty much during their first week, because I want to make sure that they have what they need. If they have any questions, if they can't get the answers from the company, whatever, I'm there as a resource to support it. Do I go so far as to help build the onboarding program for the client? No. That's something that I've actually been thinking about implementing this year to kind of, for a few reasons. One, it helps to kind of provide that support past the kind of start date to the candidate and to the company, and also then the candidate may feel more comfortable coming to me if there's an issue that they want to have helped solve, because if that issue doesn't get solved, then they're going to quit, and obviously that's not great for either side for that to happen. We don't get super deep into it today, but that's something that we have been kind of thinking about building more of a more structured process for those companies that need help with that. But I do agree that is a make it or break it. I've been onboarded by companies and I'm like, well, this was a terrible onboarding experience. And then I've been onboarded by companies that it's been good. I don't think every company has it fully figured out, especially, with people being fully remote now with onboarding. It's a little bit more difficult to kind of do that and make it more personal and all that fun stuff. But
How do you think you've evolved as a leader?
It's been interesting because, being a solopreneur, you kind of have to motivate yourself to be that thought partner, but also get down in the weeds to actually do the recruitment and do the business development. And now that I've got, I leverage AI for a lot of things. I've got system and tools set up that kind of help automate some things. So and obviously I've got people that are out doing different things. That kind of has caused me or forced me to evolve from what do I do with my free time now? And so I think that's one of the biggest challenges that I've heard from a lot of people that have, hired that first or second or fifth employee, but that's unlocked some of the administrative tasks that you're doing and allowing you to do other things. You need to be able to fill that time with more high value, business development, revenue generating tasks. And so it's been a fun exercise because, as an introvert and as a really good, I enjoy the recruitment. I enjoy the hunt of finding people. It's allowed me, with having Aaron out doing business development. I've got Nikki who does a lot of my kind of office administration and things like that. And now my job day to day is just filling the roles that we have, building more structure into kind of thinking more strategically about how do we grow the business. I've got the podcast, which also kind of funnels into all of that. So I have to, make sure I'm spending enough time on the business, kind of working on the business, not always working in the business, right? Because working in the business, you're just blocking and tackling and doing the things. You're almost an employee at that point. So I have to schedule my own time to say, okay, cool, let's go think about these strategic projects that we've got. I did that last year when we launched Recruiting as a Service. That was something I had in the back of my mind for a long time, and just didn't have the time to actually focus on it. I hired Nikki. She took a lot of the administrative stuff off my plate, so I had hours that I could then spend on, okay, how does this work? Will it work? Talk to some potential clients, beta tested it with one. It worked well. We did another and another and another, and now it's kind of one of our core offerings, as of 2026 and beyond. So.
Amazing. Look, we're coming to the end of the interview. I ask the same 6 questions to all my guests. They're quick fire questions. They don't need a quick fire answer. First question, what's the best decision that you've made?
Marrying my wife.
She's probably listening, so that's a good answer.
Yeah, I can hear her in the background. She's in a meeting, but no, I mean, I think, and I'll just elaborate a little bit on that. I think, I've seen some posts and some of the biggest decisions in life that you make, obviously, financially buying a house, but finding the right partner in
Yeah.
life can be a very empowering process or empowering partner. Going back to when I quit my job, I started a business. We were both in lockstep of doing that. We never anticipated COVID, blowing up the world and completely destroying my first year in business. And, you know, she never kind of was like, well, what are you doing today? Why, because, nobody was hiring. So I had a lot of free time on my hands. Luckily, I was doing some real estate stuff, but, she never kind of looked at me like, oh my God, you're not generating revenue. Like I made half the money in 2020 that I did in 2019. So, that's not great from a, financial perspective for us, but that's why we put the we built the financial stability that we did the year or two prior. And even as my business has done well, we've invested in different things. Some of them worked out, some of them didn't. We have been in lockstep on every kind of decision that we've made. Again, they all have not been perfect. They have not all worked out. But we've changed, we moved from during COVID in October of 2020, she got a job offer in Austin, Texas. We were living in Philadelphia. 2 weeks later, we were in Texas, and so we've been very much in lockstep throughout our lives. And we've been married for 12 or 13 years now. And so, best decision I made is probably that.
Amazing. What's the best piece of advice you've been given?
Listen to your wife. No, it's, I guess the best piece of advice, that's a good question. Cause I think I feel like the books that I've read, and obviously the 4 Hour Work Week has been impactful, but one of the ones that I read that really kind of unlocked some things to me was the book Who Not How, which is all about, similar to 5 Hour Work Week, similar to kind of like hiring people to do the things that you don't want to do, right? So there's a lot of things. If you give yourself an hourly pay rate, what are the things that are below that pay rate, significantly below that pay rate, that you should not be doing, that are causing you not to grow personally, professionally, spiritually, et cetera, et cetera. So that book, it's not one piece of advice, but it is a kind of ethos or kind of mindset around hiring people that are great at certain things that you don't love to do, that will allow you to do the things that you want to do and are great at.
Amazing. Who's the person that's helped you most in your career? And you can't say your wife.
No, I would say I had my first boss right out of college. It was with a big staffing firm called Aerotech, and I was living in York, Pennsylvania. And I would say he instilled, and Aerotech in general, but he instilled a work ethic in me. And I also got this from my parents. My parents were both very, very hard workers. I never heard them complain really about anything work related. But he really had this kind of ethos that because I was in sales, so if the revenue that you're generating hits the marks, he's not overly concerned about how many activities you are doing to get to that result. Now, if you're falling behind on your revenue targets, then you start to go back the ladder, if you will, to see kind of where you're failing, and then be able to address it. And then it'll kind of help throughout the process. So hiring Aaron, that really has helped me kind of really think about how to not only motivate myself and worry about the end result, but then also keeping track of all of the things that you need to be doing in order to hit that result. That's been really, really helpful in not only myself kind of motivating myself, but also as I have more and more people on my team, really set the things up correctly, and really kind of make sure that they are motivated as well.
Tell me about a regret that you have.
Investing in commercial real estate in
Oh,
2021.
oh, why? Did it bottom out?
It was the worst time ever maybe
Yeah.
not ever, but it was the worst time in recent history to invest in multifamily commercial real estate, doing kind of the value add structures that we were doing. Part of, Rich Dad Poor Dad is investing in real estate, and there's obviously various asset classes and ways to invest. And I got into investing in multifamily commercial real estate at the exact wrong time. It was the It was the opposite of the Warren Buffett kind of quote of, be fearful when everybody's greedy and greedy when everybody's fearful. We were greedy when everybody was greedy. And, we got our hands slapped pretty hard by that. So we invested in, a handful of deals that are not doing anywhere near what we anticipated them doing. And so that was definitely a very, very large regret that, and an expensive regret that if I could go back in time, I would
It's
change
sad.
that for sure.
Real estate really does hit you hard when you make a bad move, doesn't it?
That's right. That's
Yeah.
exactly right.
So I've got properties myself that I rent out, and I've kept my strategies to buy to let. So it's family homes. It's slightly
Yeah.
different in the UK. We have a lot of family homes, whether they're 2, 3, 4 bed or whatever. And I tried a strategy probably about over a year ago, and it cost me a decent chunk of change because it was bad positioning, bad economy, made the decision, had to suffer the consequences, unfortunately.
Yep. But it's one of the things, if you're not winning, you're learning, right?
Yeah.
So, you have to you have to keep your chin up because it can be, it can be daunting, especially when you start to look at the numbers and like, oh my God, I lost this amount of money. And, that's, it's a lot of money. So
Yeah.
yeah.
All right, next question. Was there a time that you wanted to give up? What made you continue?
Pretty much March and April of 2020, I was ready to, because, when I started and I left, it was COVID was talked about like it was, oh, there's this virus in China. But in early 2020, it didn't become a global pandemic until late January, early February, and then the world shut down. Like what is it, March 15th or something like
March,
that.
yeah,
So,
I remember, yeah.
um, so had I known, had I been like, hey, I'm gonna quit on my birthday, which is end of March, I never would have quit because I would have been too scared of like, well, COVID's shutting down the world, nobody's hiring. I've got this steady income. I probably never would have quit. I may never have actually quit. I may have just been too scared because both Alice and I are very risk averse people, and obviously starting a business is a risk. So I quit before COVID was a thing. The world was still fine when I quit. And so, but in like March, April, we really were in the height of COVID. We didn't really know what was going to happen. And so it was one of the things where I would wake up and luckily I was still very regimented. I still would get up and go to the gym or work out or do something physical. I wouldn't just sit in our apartment and kind of wallow in my sorrows. But yeah, I mean, that was a challenging time because as a man, I was always brought up to be like, you're the financial stability of the household, and so I was, not providing in my mindset of what I should have been at that point in my life, and so that was challenging from mentally, and luckily I had some people that were around me that I could lean on and talk to outside of Allison, and that really helped kind of keep me going through. And then luckily, as we moved to Austin, that was a great move. And as we turned the page to 2021, then recruiting took off, and so it overly made up for what I had hoped to make in my first year. So yeah, that was
Brilliant.
challenging for sure.
Tell me something that most people don't know about you.
What do most people don't know about me? I don't know. I'm a pretty private person, so most people don't know a lot about me. I would say I don't. Even though I've got a podcast and I've been on podcasts, I kind of keep a lot of my stuff close to the vest, a little bit, I guess. I mean, I did an Ironman, but that's on LinkedIn. Yeah, I don't really have a lot of weird secrets. I guess I don't know. I don't know how to answer that, to be honest with you.
Well,
Yeah,
do you so the Iron Man is a very obvious thing. Like I did see that when I was
yeah.
researching you and getting my questions. But I suppose the delving into that sort of question is not to pry on your personal life, because I'm very respectful if people are private people, but that sort of thing that you tell someone and they'd be surprised. Like you tell your employee, your lady that's helping you, what would you tell her that she would be surprised that you do?
A lot of people don't know that I grew up on a farm,
Yeah,
and that I
okay.
actually had chickens and pigs, and we had a sheep that I used to ride around our house, not in the house, but outside. So yeah, that's actually a good point. Probably most people don't know that unless they've listened to podcasts. Frankly, then they do know that. But yeah, I mean, I grew up on a 10-acre little farm in central
Amazing.
Pennsylvania. Our hometown had one traffic light and four bars. The stereotypical blue collar,
Amazing.
area, and yeah, so yeah, I would say that's probably maybe one thing that people
Yeah, no,
don't
that's good.
at face value don't know. So yeah,
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing.
yeah.
What does legacy mean to you?
Um, for myself, and I think I can speak for Allison, we don't have kids and don't plan to. So we think about legacy in a little bit different than a lot of people that have kids. They think about their kids and providing for them. And so, we are building a life for ourselves. And I think our legacy will hopefully be in the things that we can support both financially and with our time while we're here and when we pass. Our goal is not to spend every dollar that we have saved slash invested. Our goal is to obviously live a great life as long as we possibly can, and then any money that is there that's left over is to provide resources to causes that we are supportive of. So, we are on the board of a farm animal sanctuary. So we're very passionate about, farm animal cruelty and things like that. And so, helping to continue those efforts, I think will be really what our legacy is all about. Opposed to having kids that are going to live on and grandkids and et cetera, et
Mm.
cetera.
Amazing. Look, thank you, Justin. Thanks for sharing your journey and the insights that you've had on building high impact teams. If you're looking to scale and you want to hire with confidence, visit hiretomorrow.com. And if you've got value from today's episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave us a review. It really helps to grow the podcast. This is Business Growth Talks. Thank you very much and see you on the next time.